everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and this is Albino Lullaby. $9.99 for its first episode. This is an episodic series that goes for $24.99 for its season pass. Now, before I begin, I want to make sure you guys know that this key was obtained from the developer. I reached out to them, they gave me a key in exchange for coverage of their game. That won't influence any of my opinions about the game, but I want to make sure in full disclosure to let you guys know. Let's start with the setting and a little bit of the backstory behind Albino Lullaby and exactly what you should expect out of it. As you see here, we start off with a Victorian landscape that has, this house burning down. You start getting messages of a little girl saying, "I know why you killed me," and, weird sequences regarding cars, and really, you don't get a lot of information about what this world is about to, sort of throw you into, and that's the purpose of it. The thing is that you're in this combination sort of prison and grandma's house situation. It's a very big mashup of worlds. You've got realistic elements of the Victorian setting, but then you have creatures like you saw just go by the car there in the Easter Island statues, which are known as the children. Now, your goal in this game is to make it out of this house or this prison or wherever you're in and try to discover what the hell is going on. And it leads into some of the horror elements that the game presents. Now, what will drive potential buyers to Albino Lullaby is the horror elements, and this is an atypical horror game, and what I mean by that is the sort of situation that you're being put into. While you have games that, focus on gore and focus on jump scares, this is very different, and this is even very different from what I would consider the other psychological games out there. Games like, not necessarily Amnesia per se, I think, it does a good job in terms of environment building. Silent Hill, Eternal Darkness, this is more about unease. The thing is that there's no necessarily scary elements of the game in terms of scary visuals. Sure, the Easter Island statues are a little bit scary. The game relies on your sort of piecing the world together to make the horrors in itself. Now, the thing is you find these notes that give you a little bit of the backstory. Not enough, but give you enough to understand, something's not right here about the prisoner and the boys and the children. You start finding torture devices or, devices used in what would be like medical experiments, as you see right here. It's things that would definitely go on some fears in terms of people. This feels like a dentist situation. This feels like, a dentist chair. It is pretty much a dentist chair. And so what happened here? What are they doing? The game does do that reasonably well. And the thing is that you will get interested by it. You will get interested by the fact that, hey, what is going on in here? What are these Easter Island statues? What is these showers? What are they talking about? This sign right here, the 4 security stations are, have they removed all their teeth? What is going on? It does that very well. And the themes in particular I find strong. Now, in terms of like the grandma, there's a cult like leader in the grandmother that you never see. That works very well at the start. There is an interesting story element, and it's the strongest element of the game in terms of its overall presentation. Now, with that said, it's not necessarily for everyone. Slow and methodical players will enjoy this game. They will enjoy the little things like this, the meat stew and things like that. You're wondering what is actually in that meat stew or these sweetbreads that are uncooked. What is actually, again, going on in this game. But if you run faster through it, if you play through it a little bit faster or don't look at the little details, you'll lose a lot of context. You'll lose a lot of that sort of element that could really bring this game to life. And I think for a player who's not slow and methodical, they're going to really, really hate this game because it is slow and methodical. Some of the problems that Albino Lullaby actually present, though, is that sort of using those themes and actually executing. The execution is where things are poor. I want to take an example of the sound design. Now, you can listen to some of the, children as they were, talk about this world and talk about, what's going on, talk about these showers and being good behaved and things like that. But the thing is that the execution doesn't necessarily work. There's directional sound that, it seems like they're trying to, make it so that, it's distance-based or things like that, but it's still hard to hear without being really close up and close and personal to it. And considering that that's usually a game over in terms of being caught, you don't really want to get that close to people. I felt like it worked against itself in terms of that. I wanted to listen to these things, and when their backs were turned, that was fine. But when, characters are moving around and you've got things like that, it just doesn't work the way that it's executed here, which unfortunately does make a huge difference in terms of the enjoyment of the game. And I feel like it, again, needs an understanding of the fact that, if you're going to go for that thematic portion in terms of characters talking, you gotta complement it with the technical precision. And technical precision is, unfortunately, a theme of this game that does not work. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay, because unfortunately for Albino Lullaby, this is where the game falters the most. Unfortunately, the gameplay doesn't complement the horror elements very well in terms of sort of the action sections of it, or the things that actually do. The exploration can be problematic too. Now, to talk about it, adventure and exploration is the main point of the game. You're supposed to find out where to go next, find these clues, open up doors, and things like that. Now, exploring the map can be fun to an extent. Looking at pictures on the walls and getting an understanding of what the world is probably the greatest strength. But there's no natural progression in terms of where to go necessarily. You got to be looking for things, and people who really like looking without direction may enjoy this portion of the game. However, with absolutely really no clue of where to go at times, it can cause frustration, especially where, unfortunately, there's no map, there's no anything like that, where you can use references to, wait, where am I in this house, without really knowing the house from top to bottom. And unfortunately, that does hurt the sort of overall pacing of the game, which, although you want it slow, you don't want it too slow. You want to keep the player moving a little bit. Now, there are gameplay elements in terms of stealth, and this is probably the second worst feature of the game. The thing about the stealth sequence in this game is the fact that the stealth system is very, very convoluted, and it's very, very inconsistent. And unfortunately, that makes a huge difference with the stealth system. I'm going to use an example here where I'm trying to find a way to hit that button. Now, I don't know if these enemies are spawned in right. I'm going to be completely honest with you, because there's really no way for me to get over to that specific button without going through one of these enemies. There's one on the left and one on the right. Now, the thing is that you'll notice that I walk right in front of him, and he doesn't actually catch me. It's weird. I'm right in front of him. I should be right there caught, but he doesn't notice me. In fact, I jump off this balcony, and he still doesn't. Nobody notices me. Only when do I get out of the room does the music sort of chime in, and then all of a sudden there's a chase going on. And unfortunately, that is consistent. You will have times where you're caught, where you're sitting there going, how the hell did it see me? When other times you were completely in the open, and you're sitting there going, how the heck did it not see me? Systems like Metal Gear Solid, where you see the stealth element of it, and it's very, very clear who can see you and what, distance and things like that at times. Here, it's the exact opposite, and unfortunately, that causes a major problem for the game in terms of unfairness, the player feeling like there's something off here. Now, I said this was the second biggest issue because, unfortunately, it could be tied to what I think is the worst issue of the game in question, and that's its technical precision. Unfortunately for Albino Lullaby, and while I am sensitive to, developers and, the toughness that it is to create a game, there are major issues technically. Now, before I get into the elements of this, I want to make sure that people know that I did face a game-breaking bug. At this time, as I make the video, that bug is not fixed. I actually went back and started at the beginning to get through that section. The bug in question was a bug regarding the enemies in question, me failing a mission and more enemies spawning the next time around, to the point where the entire room door was stock full of enemies, and I couldn't actually get around them. So that caused a major problem for me, and that did bias me in terms of, that really didn't want me to go forward in terms of, I'm not sure if I want to complete this at this point. But it's beyond that. There are technical issues when turning, and especially fast turning in the environment, where you see textures loading and things like that. The game does have some unfortunate optimization problems, and the thing is that it's not necessarily the most graphically intense game. it is relying on some good art and visuals, but you will see stutters at times. You will see issues where it's like the game is trying to think of what to do next. And unfortunately, in a game where your natural progression, your sort of slow and methodic movement makes a huge difference, you notice those issues. You notice them come to the forefront right away. And unfortunately, that makes a bad impression on the end user. And in particular, at times it gave me actual motion sickness where it would, stutter and then it would go forward. And it's almost like you were in like sort of a roller coaster and you're just like jerking forward. So yeah, technical issues in a game like this sort of, go to the forefront. And unfortunately, they sort of shine. And unfortunately, that is a problem. In the end, Albino Lullaby is going to be for people who really want an alternate horror experience. I mean, if you're looking for something that will put you at, unease, I think Albino Lullaby does do that rather well. It does sort of pose a question in terms of, what is this world that has been created and exactly what are you doing? If somebody's looking for that sort of, interesting, out there experience, I think it works. Unfortunately, overall, I can't necessarily recommend it due to some of the technical issues. Now, if they're fixed, I think it is a step forward, but, some of the gameplay doesn't necessarily work. The price, it's hard to say, especially with the episodic nature of it, whether or not you're getting the full experience out of this. Again, $9.99 for the first episode. I'm about 2 hours in at this point because of the restart, and really, after the restart, it only took me about 30, 45 minutes to get to the part that I needed to again. It honestly, unfortunately, just doesn't, seem like a bang for buck kind of situation there. And hopefully they can, sort out the issues in question. But again, I want to give it the strengths of its world building, its sort of, alternate horror experience that, yeah, it will be for some people. It just may not be for a lot of them. All right, this is Dragnix signing out. If you have any questions about the game, I'm always willing to answer them below. And again, I always take feedback, so anything that you guys feel like you want to see changed or things like that. Again, I'm trying to make a career of this, so any feedback really helps the channel in terms of it, marketing to other people. All right, I will see you all later, and hopefully you don't have these horrors, lying around your house. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left-hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left-hand side as well. And if you've missed my last video, take a look at the right-hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.